job I care about.
Ah, yes, of course. Hey, this is Ben Wheeler coming in for a pre-Christmas anime live stream at almost the end of the year. I'm gonna try and get good old Brian Niemeyer on for good old Brian Niemeyer on for end of the year one, as well as just kind of you know see what goes on, see who's around, that sort of thing. And then I'm hoping to do some publishers of fiction all throughout January. Well, uh, let's see here. How are you doing today, Anthony?
I'm wonderful. I've been on here a couple times. I'll give the Cliff Notes intro. Hi, I'm Anthony Marchetta. Uh, I am the editor and co-author of God, Robot, and Tales of the Once and Future King, and I do a
Hmm.
column on the Castalia House blog on sporadic Tuesdays when I have the time for the superversive movement.
Yep, and it's pretty good articles. The one we're going to be talking about today is sort of down in the description below, and it's about the anime year in review, and just sort of the year in review in general. So let's see here, Anthony. Why don't you tell us about your year in review?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start off by saying, the whole pulp movement. Anime is my pulp movement. The idea being that it opened me up to new ideas of what fiction could be and all of that, which is why my posting became almost exclusively anime related. I want to talk about things I enjoy. And
Hmm.
in my opinion, this has been a fantastic year for anime, with the very, very notable exception of the Kyoto animation fire, which there's
Yeah.
no way to sugarcoat that. It's as bad as it sounds. It was horrendous, and I have no way to soften that blow. But as far as the quality of the shows that actually came out this year, pretty high.
Oh, absolutely. Why don't you tell us your favorites this year?
The favorites of the year. So, in the article Ben was referring to on Castalia House, if you go in the search bar and type anime mega post, it'll probably be like the first one that comes up. It's just I did a vague overview of every season, very incomplete, but it should contain most of like the popular shows, that people were paying attention to. I may have missed a couple in the rundown, but these are certainly all the ones I cared about over the year.
Hmm.
I also, yeah, as I'm looking, I also have a slight error on the top of the article that maybe I should edit right now, because I have an image of Giorno Giovanna from JoJo's Part 5, and it says a holdover from winter 2018. That is not true. It's fall 2018, going into the winter 2019 season.
Yep.
But whatever. The point is, yeah, I should probably fix that. That's the only reason I included it, because it went into winter 2019, but whatever. Anyway, so the way that I did it is I picked a category winner for every season: winter, spring, summer, fall, starting from January all the way to now. I picked a winner for that season, and a runner up if there was one. Not every season, in my opinion, had a decent runner up that I would really recommend. And then I did a best continuing show or sequel. Continuing show meaning a show that started in fall 2018 and continued into winter 2019, which is why I have Giorno at the top of the page. And bonus round, Carol and a disappointment of the year, which was Carol and Tuesday. There's your spoiler. And I picked a new show of the year. So it's a long post. That's why I called it Mega Post. But I wrote it pretty quickly because I like writing about things I enjoy. And I like
Hmm.
talking about things I enjoy. That's hopefully more my brand than bashing. That's the intention anyway.
But how will you get popular?
Eh.
It's true.
Well, my favorite analyst is Alexander, and actually, I'll try and type his name in the chat 'cause it's really hard since he spells it weird. Uh, Alexander is pretty much exactly the type of analyst I want to be, and he's brilliant. And there, the name is written in the chat. My chat name's Amos Bellamy. It comes from my Gmail account, but whatever. Anyway, Alexander does exactly the sort of thing that I like to do and hope to do is he does analysis of shows that he thinks are good. He doesn't specifically say that's what he does, but I don't think I've ever seen him talk about something he didn't actually like. So, and he does really deep dives. He loves Hunter x Hunter, which I think is good, not great. And he loves Steins Gate, and I have the same opinion of that. But his analyses are absolutely top notch, and I highly recommend him. And what I try and write is in the same vein. I don't want to talk about why something was bad. I want to talk about why something is good.
Hmm.
Not that there is no value in talking about bad things, but I would rather it be the exception and not the rule. There's too much negativity nowadays, in the critic community especially.
Mm, I
I mean,
get that.
I love the Critical Drinker, I love Mahler, I love ER, and they're fun to listen to, but I don't want them to be the only people I listen to.
Yep.
So, as far as the post goes, let's get your opinions then. I started off with the winter season, 2019. What did you have as your anime of the season, from what you can recall? Because I, of course, had the luxury of looking this up, and I don't know if you even bothered or not, since not that big a deal.
Well, for me, it's the whole anime season stuff. Is I have what I like, and I really just kind of go for it. And if it's not something I particularly care for, I'm not going to worry about it. Obviously, I don't really have any troll choices like Wiz or anything like that. But especially for winter, I really did enjoy most of Promise Neverland and Mob Psycho 100. The thing is that like for me, Mob Psycho's really good, but it only needed the one season for me. Um, the second season's pretty good. I just, not really driven to see it. And then Promise Neverland, the opening, like the first arc of Promise Neverland, is a masterpiece, like a true masterpiece. The problem is that like I know that they're going to lose the plot eventually, and I know that they're currently like on break while they figure out the last climax against a human enemy, and what I hope is the last arc for this particular manga, because nothing should be eternal. Um, you know, it's so it's like even though it's pretty good, I'm not as big a fan as you might expect. The biggest sort of disappointment for me actually came in spring 2000. I think it's spring 2019. Yeah, spring 2019, with two shows, Fairy Gone and The Occult Bureau. Um, and they both had,
Yeah.
and like, so we'll talk about our disappointments later. But for me, I'm enjoying the dub of Kimetsu no Yaiba, Demon Slayer, very much. And I think, are we in agreement with that?
From what I've seen, I haven't really been paying attention to the dub. I heard a little bit. It sounded fine. I heard people were really upset by the choice of Inosuke's voice actor. He sounded fine.
Yeah.
They mentioned maybe they should have switched Zenitsu and Inosuke, and arguably, it it didn't affect me much when I saw it.
I don't know. I haven't seen the latest dubbed episodes, so I couldn't tell you. They're still fighting that demon pair. Eh,
Oh yeah, that's the one with the arrows and the arrow and ball demon.
yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
Same here. So how about you? What
I
was your
thought,
favorite for spring
oh, okay.
2019?
So spring 2019. As far as continuing shows, there was of course JoJo's Part Five. I love
Mm-hmm.
JoJo's Part Five. We discussed it before. Is it my favorite part? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
However good it is. Uh, what came out that season, there were two shows that stuck out to me that were new, that were really good, and it was The Promised Neverland again, and I really enjoyed Kaguya-sama Love is War. That was my runner-up of the season. I know Digibro particularly really didn't like it, but honestly, Digibro I've noticed very hard for me to predict what he will and won't like. Like I genuinely, I've guessed totally wrong on him before, and I still don't really get it. So who knows?
He
But
sensed it and
Kaguya-sama,
immediately took the contrarian position.
yeah, and then sometimes he doesn't. Like I can't stand Slime as a Kai. I think it's terrible. People love Slime as a Kai. I
I
thought he would
know.
hate it, but he likes it. So what do I know?
Yeah.
But whatever. Kaguya-sama Love is War for people who don't know it. It's a high school rom-com, but it's a kind of a it's a very interesting one. It stars two characters. This is exactly how I wrote it out, and I think I had a good description, so I'm just going to read it. Who both obviously like each other, but instead of talking it out, engage in escalating battles of hyperbolic 3D chess as they try to get the other to confess. I think that's about as good a description as I can get out right now. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it starts off slow, I think. I thought it was fine early on. But to be honest, I actually liked it more when it turned into more of a conventional rom com, which is a little bit interesting. Not that it didn't lose its edge, I don't. I thought it still had the fun of the mental battles and what that did, but I liked it more when it started digging into the characters a little bit, especially Kaguya. Chica is an overrated character, and I think she keeps people away from the show because of how moe she is, and
Mm-hmm.
that's fair. That's very fair because I'm really not a fan of moe generally. Uh, Chica's really not terrible in context, but with that said, I understand why people would stay away. But here is my recommendation to anybody who stayed away because Chica, don't. Chica's a good character, but Kaguya is the best female character in the show. She actually gets a decent amount of development. She's a lot of fun to watch. I enjoyed the finale a lot. The Chica Dance ED isn't even the best ED in the show. It's overrated. The other ED is better. Anyway, I mentioned that, but just because you hadn't mentioned it at all yet, and I really did enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Recommend it. Uh, my favorite show of the season, though, yes, it was The Promised Neverland. I really enjoyed it. The character animations were great. I love the way Crone moved. The way she moved just had was so creepy for some
Mm-hmm.
reason. And I'm not even sure why, but they the way they animated her and the atmosphere of the season is great. Honestly, my big issue with it was that, and by the way, I'm just going to spoil the hell out of it. So I kind of have to talk about the issue that I have. It's pacing, but the particular pacing thing. So cover your ears if you really don't want to know this. In the middle, I mean, of the season, they fake kill Norman. I didn't even read ahead, and I know that they fake killed Norman. It was very obvious
Mm-hmm.
that he was fake killed. And then I asked somebody later, and they confirmed I was anyway. But yeah, middle of the season, they fake kill Norman, and they spend like an episode and a half of a 12 episode season, so not that many episodes. They spend like an episode and a half just focused on Norman's impending death. And there was seriously no reason to hyper focus on this. There is very little in this section that we didn't know. He introduces a couple of things, but that could have been done at like the beginning of one episode. And then they
Well,
fake kill him.
Well, like here's the thing with the Norman death. It actually took a long time for them to play that off. You know what I mean? Like they let it go for quite some time before they
What, the
revealed
fake?
that he was alive.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So it's one of
they
those
play
things.
it up.
Hmm?
They play it up so much though. Like they're make honestly, that was really what tipped me off more than the fact, they have the scene where he sees whatever is in the other room and he doesn't look scared, just kind of surprised. But
Right.
honestly, that wasn't even what tipped me off. What tipped me off was how long they spent on his death and how like it looked as if they were coming up with some way to keep him alive, but they didn't. And I'm like, if
Hmm.
he's not alive, why did they waste this much time on this on this plan that they're not actually going through with?
Right.
And then and then my even bigger issue is that like the episode after Norman's death, we learned that a ton of stuff happened, like a ton, and we see none of it except in a very brief flashback.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I would have loved to at least see some of this. Like, why did we focus on pretending Norman wasn't going to die when you were sending him off, except he's not dead anyway? And then all of this interesting stuff is happening, and we don't see any of it. And
Yeah.
in the end, this is really not that big of an issue, because honestly, what we got, especially in the finale, even with the flashbacks, most of what we got in that finale was very good. I knew they were going to start a fire just because they put a lot of emphasis on the lantern and also what else were they going to do.
Eh.
That was kind of their only play.
Yeah.
But it was still entertaining. I'm not complaining about that at all. Uh, it was a very good show. I unreservedly recommend it. Excellently animated. It's a real horror show.
Hmm.
There's definitely like the atmosphere of creeping dread is very, very well done. The first episode, holy shit, I love that episode. When they show the face of the little girl
Hmm.
after she's eaten by the demon, I was like, whoa.
Wow.
Somebody's asking, why do I sound like I'm talking from within a baffled tin tub? I think that's me.
It is you.
Let me answer right now because I had been trying to fix the audio issues on this for like a half hour before uh, the chat actually started, and this was the best I could do. I'll continue tinkering with it in the background, however, to try and get it to work.
Don't worry. The next time I have him on here, like he got a new computer and stuff like that, so we're still stuck with
Yes.
what we got. So it's just one of
So
those
I'm on
things.
a phone right now, which is why it sounds weird. I tried to get it set up on my computer and wasn't cooperating. So
Hmm.
sorry about the audio quality. Hopefully you can at least understand what I'm thinking.
Absolutely.
And from what I heard a little bit of it on the video, and I think I'm audible at least, so that's a good thing.
That's all I'm asking. At this point in time, anyway. So that's like winter 2019.
Yeah. So winter 2019, if not great, one very good show, and that was The Promised Neverland. And in my opinion, one pretty decent show in Kaguya-sama Love is War, and one excellent continuing show in JoJo Golden Wind. And I loved season 2 of Mob Psycho 100. I won't go on about that, but I loved season 2 of Mob Psycho 100. I know you didn't like it as much, even though you liked it.
Hmm.
Uh, but
It's
I
it's
thought it was
more like I
so.
didn't complete it. And to me, it's not so much like I love Senko-san, which is in spring 2019 and is my second place choice after Demon Slayer. But the thing is that I still haven't completed it because it's
Uh,
the even though there is a slight narrative to it and stuff like that, I've discovered that a lot of shows
Hold
are
on 1 second, please. I'm getting a call from somebody. Keep going.
they're not as important as I am. Come on,
Yes? What's up?
this guy. We'll just listen to him anyway. Uh, No, I did like JoJo's. Probably JoJo was overall one of the best animes in the last couple years.
Sure.
And you know, it's sad to see it go. We're right now waiting on part 6. Whew, probably at the end of 2020. The way things are going, we'll see though. The problem is that part 6 is less popular than part 5 in Japan, but not in the US. I'm also noticing a trend of anime playing to whatever the American fan base wants. Ooh, pardon me. Not to particularly what the Japanese want or what everything else is. I need to do a video as to why Killa kills Sengoku period arc, which is the middle arc, is like completely worthless and needs to be taken out. It was probably put in there just so that they can guarantee a longer series without actually, you know, losing anything. Let me see here. Narrative is overrated. Cute fox waifus are more important. You're absolutely right, Willie Ram. Uh, you know, you do want that. You do want that tail fluffing experience. Absolutely. You get back, Anthony?
Apologies for that. Somebody asked me. Somebody need to me to answer a question.
I get you.
But yes, I'm back,
Yep,
and you'll hear me breathing heavily slightly because I just ran up my stairs.
that's okay. So the point I was gonna make is that I've noticed that a lot of shows, especially shows I don't know that aren't narrative adventure stories, uh, not necessarily Mob Psycho 100, but especially like Senko-san and quite a few other
Mm-hmm.
ones, some isekai, are basically the first episode or first 3 episodes is the show. So,
Yeah.
and it's like I dig it, and then you add more elements to it if you want more of it. Um, but the thing is that like that doesn't necessarily make it like good or anything like that. Like the only series that probably did it very well that I can remember is Sengoku, well, Attack on Titan, because Attack on Titan had a really dramatic first episode and then immediately slowed it down, so you're hooked. But the problem is that um, you know that the hook doesn't necessarily accept quality. You can have a very exciting hook, but which I looked around, which Fairygon and Cult Bureau tried to have. In fact, the Cult Bureau tried
Yes.
to pull a Romeo and Juliet that fell flat on its face. Um, Fairygon,
Did they really? I
yeah.
tried like one episode of Fairy Gone and gave up on it almost immediately because I
Well,
just knew I wasn't gonna like it.
yeah, they're
And
both.
I think I did.
hmm.
I may have done the same thing with Occult Bureau. I don't even remember.
Well, Fairy Gone had this like weird stand thing, but the thing is that like the reason why JoJo's works is because JoJo is confident, and they had like mobsters and things running around, and their hook wasn't as good. So like when they actually had the full drama sort of revealed, I didn't care. In Occult Bureau, like I saw what the first episode was. This guy solves magical creatures' problems. And I'm like, okay. The problem is the first one was a very classic Romeo and Juliet. Two sides are nearly at war. So it didn't like first off that's done to death for me. I can't really be impressed by that. And secondly, I don't really feel that that's the best way to start something. Even though it introduces a lot of characters really quickly, it if you don't handle the hype, if you don't create hype, no one's going to push past the fact that you have a bog standard paint by numbers plot, which is why they kind of share the most disappointing anime of the year. They're not like something that's crazy or fetishistic or anything like that. They're generic. There's animes that do it better. Fairygon can easily be replaced by Bakano and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Occult Bureau can be replaced by any of the decent Monster Girl things out there, like Monster Musume. Um, and even then, it like they didn't want to go like the full like fetish route, which is, I'm not encouraging that, but it's a draw. It's something to get people to watch your show, so you can tell an interesting story afterwards if you're not a corrupt hack. But I'm gonna leave that
Yeah.
as an unspoken question. But so yeah, that's just why I like Senko-san. It's probably my choice for second favorite anime of the season. Didn't finish it.
Uh, as far as the disappointment of the year, I have that on my original article. That's actually its own separate bonus category,
Hmm.
just because there were a few that occurred to me. I guess I'll bring that up later, but I mentioned early on my winner was Carol and Tuesday. I had great hopes for it, and I really didn't like it.
Hmm.
But
Well,
whatever. I'll get
Willie
more into that later.
Willie Ram says Chad JoJo versus the Virgin Fairygon. Exactly.
Good point. It
That
was,
is.
and it was the JoJo director, by the way. Remember Jeff of Mother's Basement said that specifically.
Yep.
It was the JoJo director.
But the thing is that like director doesn't mean anything because he's only working on someone else's work. He might be making decent choices, but he still didn't have that writing
Yeah,
confidence. Like if he was the director and writer of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure,
maybe.
maybe, but he isn't. So all he's doing is he's taking Araki's, 10 out of 10 styles and, making sure they're animated properly, which is merely being a good steward, not necessarily a good artist.
Okay, so we're into spring. You mentioned Senko-san, and you mentioned briefly Demon Slayer.
Mhm.
So, in my opinion, due to the fact that it didn't have as many great sequels with it either, but or continuing shows like JoJo 5,
Mhm.
the spring season was not overall as good as the winter season.
Mhm.
However, well, I know that we both agree on this. Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, which by the way I later learned means Sword of Demon Destruction, which is absolutely kick ass.
Right.
But I guess it's too long to use as a title, but holy shit. Anyway, yeah, Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. I loved it. It's a great show. Uh, this is what I have on here. It's about as generic a shonen as you can get. Uh, for that matter, I'm pretty sure that's why Digibro again, and I'm mentioning him a couple times because I have a lot of respect for Digibro as a critic, believe it or not.
Mhm.
Even though I disagree with him about some very fundamental issues of criticism and art, I still think that he is one of the better analytical critics on YouTube, so which is why I bring him up so much. But I know he wasn't a fan of Demon Slayer for two big reasons. Was it was a very generic shonen, which is absolutely correct. It is, and I'm not arguing with that. And he did not like the animation style. I think he said he thought it was a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing, more or less.
Hmm.
But you know what? I thought it was fantastic. What I have on here is that the characters are fine, but nothing special. The plot is fine, but nothing special. But the production values of Demon Slayer are absurd. Like I can't even believe I'm amazed that this even got made. The production values are so good. I don't
Yeah.
know how they afforded this. I'm pretty sure there was a running joke with that actually. Pretty sure Ufotable had something with tax fraud with Demon Slayer. I don't know if that really involved Demon Slayer, but it was a result of a few running jokes.
Right.
Uh, the episode 19 fight is the most famous scene in an episode of the show, as well it should be. It is as good as promised. Uh, most people I mean talk about the animation and the action choreography, which they should because they're both outstanding. But I think that the soundtrack also deserves special praise because it's amazing.
Yep.
And the way it was used in that episode 19 fight, I don't know who came up with the idea to use a slow song, like a slow balladish song, with Tanjiro's final move in the battle. I don't know who came up with that idea, but it was genius and it worked brilliantly. And I am very much looking forward to the movie.
And
So
it,
yes, generic shonen, but there's nothing wrong with generic shonen. I have always beat the drum that shonen should get much, much more credit for being one of the more creative genres. They're often accused of being paint by numbers, but I think while that's true to an extent, I think that there's a ton of room for creativity in the shonen genre. And I certainly think Demon Slayer has its own style and its own presence. But the action scenes and the production values and soundtrack, absolutely top of the line. This is my anime of the season for spring, and I liked it more than The Promised Neverland. And yeah, I'm looking at one of our lovely commenters, Wally Ram. Hello. He says it sounds like diet eye candy, pretty and sweet, no calories. No, I would not say that. I said generic shonen, but again, I think that shonen deserves more credit than it normally gets. By generic, it doesn't mean bad. It's not bad. Not by any means. It is solidly written. It's just not reinventing the wheel.
you know what I just discovered? Ufotable did Coyote Ragtime Show.
I don't know that show.
It has the best first episode of any anime ever made. Anything else? Eh.
Interesting.
Like it's
Maybe I'll
it's
check it out then.
like it's a pretty decent action show in the vein of Cowboy Bebop. And the first episode is just ridiculously hype. But it's you just can't uh you just can't expect too much out of the rest of the season. It's in the similar sort of vein as Dimension W, but Dimension W was a better show overall with a slightly weaker first episode. And all the other stuff like it. I think there's another show, No Gun Life, um, that is kind of, I view it in the same genre, like one season sci-fi adventures.
Yeah. We'll be actually I'll be talking about that later if
Yeah,
we
I know.
go in order. Assuming we go in order,
Yeah.
I'll be bring that up later because I really really like that show.
So for me, summer 2019, there's nothing I really saw, but there is like Sonen Deska, which is about some pretty girls being stuck on a desert island and having to survive. Uh,
Oh
having
yeah,
yeah,
I
which
did see a lot of that.
which
It
was
ended terribly.
I would assume
I'm
so.
just
I didn't even finish it.
the ending
Uh,
was terrible.
the
I
thing,
liked the majority of it though.
yeah, which is about right. You know, they have to like drink flying fish blood and stuff like that to survive. It's
Like
just
that stuff I liked. Then at the end they start getting into like gross out humor, and gross out humor works about almost never.
yeah.
Not quite never, but it is so rare it works that if you're going to do it, you better have a good reason.
But then there's
Yeah,
also Doctor Stone and Fire Force in this season that were pretty good.
yes. I have on here. First off, I'll just mention one last thing about the spring season. I had no runner up. Demon Slayer was the only show I really liked. I did mention
You didn't
on
even
the
like
article I said
Senko-san?
no. I
Never
had
mind.
issues with Senko-san.
Eh,
I talked about them in the past though. I don't feel like rehashing it, but
that's alright.
th- none of what you're saying about it is wrong. I'll put it that way, but none of it appeals to me at all.
Mm-hmm.
However, I did note on here Fruits Basket is supposed to be good. It's just not my thing. However, maybe if you like rom-coms, you like Fruits Basket. I don't know.
I've heard bad things about this version. But then
Have you
again,
really?
people's taste might be trash or something. I don't know.
Terrible ending as in done badly. Wally Ram asks, done badly or terrible things happening? In Are You Lost, which I think is what you were referring to,
Yeah.
Because you used the Japanese title, I think. But if I'm thinking of the right show, Are You Lost? No, it was just badly done.
Yeah.
Not terrible things happening, badly done.
Though
But
here's the
whatever.
thing, like in the first episode, like there's plenty of gross things happening.
Sure, but it all, like, I don't know if it was so much. It was not totally humor, it was also to set tone.
Eh. Oh, I
And
get
it
you. So
worked
it
for
ruined
that.
the tone as well.
Because at the end, they were doing this. I don't even. It was so weird. I don't. I don't even want to bring it up. But like, it. Look it up. Just look it up
I'll
if you
watch it
really want to
sometime.
know.
It sounds
But
like they
anyway,
violated their premise. Uh,
some
something like that.
somewhat kind of. Yeah, you. It's something I don't even want to really bring it up because it's so gross what they do, and they play it as a joke. And sometimes Japanese humor is not to my taste, but I did not find it funny. But
Yeah.
maybe some people will. Maybe some people laugh their ass off. I don't know. But summer season. That's my winter season. I noted Fruits Basket got good reviews. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe not. Who knows? Um, I'm never going to watch it. It doesn't sound like something I would like. For the summer season, I said no new shows stood out to me except for Doctor Stone. Vinland Saga, I heard was decent, but I also heard it was divisive. Fire Force, I was pretty disappointed in. That will go on the disappointment of that's on the disappointment of the year's list, or the disappointment of the year list. I thought it was okay a lot of the time, but I eventually just kind of lost interest. It was just eh. Uh, season two of Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in the Dungeon aired. I enjoy that show.
Yeah.
I think Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in the Dungeon is what Slime, in my opinion, or at least from what I see of what people are talking about, it's sort of like what Slime Isekai, you know, is supposed to be. Like a
Mm-hmm.
kind of fun, lighthearted show that you don't really take totally seriously, but you have a good time when you watch it. That's how I look at Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? I enjoy it. Season 2 is just about as good as Season 1. It's a fun show. But Dr. Stone, I want to talk about Dr. Stone because I loved this show. Loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved it from the premise. I thought it got better as it went on. And I think it is an outstanding show. We're like The
Mm-hmm.
Promised Neverland. It is a shonen, but it's a shonen that is not a battle shonen, which seems to be a thing that's becoming bigger nowadays. I think I even saw like the director of Doctor Stone said something like that. That non-battle shonen were starting to become more prominent. Doctor Stone is a very good example of that. Uh, for those who don't know, the very quick premise is everybody turns to stone one day. We have absolutely no idea why. And then 3,000 years later, Senku Ishigami, who's a high school student who's obsessed with science, wakes up along with his dim-witted but physically adept friend Taiju. And then they decide they're going to rebuild civilization. Just on their own. They're going to do it. And then
Right.
things happen. New characters show up, an antagonist shows up. Senku ends up going off on his own and finding a village that has somehow survived in the stone world, but has no understanding of modern technology and are in a prehistoric state. So he decides that he's going to reintroduce modern technology to the Stone Age, basically. And that's the premise of the show. It had probably my favorite scene of the entire year in episode 9 when a character named Gen, forget his last name, but Gen
Uramoshi.
Nishimura maybe? What?
Nothing. I was making a joke. Don't worry about
Uh, a character named Gen shows up to the village, and he is working with the village Senku's staying at. And he's working with the villain, but he tells Senku that if he can convince him that it's worth his time to help him, and yes, Dr. Stone has a manga, by the way. In fact, the
Mm-hmm.
manga is supposedly better than the anime, but I haven't read it, so I can't
It
confirm.
certainly is.
Yes, because I heard the artwork is more consistent, mostly,
Yeah, and it's
which is
also
fine. That's fine.
it's the original it's the original version, I'll say. Like it like a lot of things have the strength of just being the original version. So it's like it has power over it, you know? That's a
It's
weird thing.
adapted the way it's supposed to be.
Yep. So it's something to just something to consider when you're like sort of seeing.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I tend to prefer anime because I really like the soundtrack of Doctor Stone too, and that's something that you're just gonna get in an anime, and that's a genuine and honestly, as an adaptation from what I followed the fan reactions to it, and fans seem to really like this adaptation. They're very satisfied with it, but
Mm-hmm.
they also acknowledge that the manga is probably still a little better, which is okay. But
Yeah.
anyway, my scene of the year was when Gen, I can't remember his last name, but Gen, who is working with the villain of the show, shows up because they think that Senku has died, and he's there to confirm if Senku is dead, and he tells Senku, "I'm working for the villain, but if you can do something to convince me that it is more worth my time to work with you, then I'll basically be a mole for you with the villain." And Senku says, "Okay, I can do it." So the episode is spent. They like to do a little bit of fast forwarding through time in Doctor Stone because they're doing a lot of building and engineering and all of that stuff. So we flash forward through a little bit of time as we see them building a human powered generator, and
Mm-hmm.
we have no idea what he's doing yet, like why he needs to build this and what he's trying to prove. And then at the end of the episode, Senku gets on top of, I think, like some sort of tree or platform, and he says, "I'm here because basically I want to show it off as far as I can." And he gives this speech about the impact of the light bulb on the world, how Edison conquered the night and ended darkness forever, and that
Mm-hmm.
humanity at one time had to be afraid of the dark, but ever since Edison invented the light bulb, no more. He goes, "And I've conquered the dark again." And he connects two wires together, and they just pan out, and you see the light shining over Japan, and they show the look on everybody's face, like total silence, just the look on everybody's face as they
Mm-hmm.
see the light shining. And that's what sold me on the show. Really, I liked it from the first episode. I loved it from the premise phase, but that's what sold me as like this is a great show. Just the way it was executed, perfect.
Absolutely.
So that's my praise, my specific praise of Doctor Stone, and that's honestly the essence of the anime right there too. It's about what would it be like to see modern technology come into being for the first time. So that's pretty much the show right there.
Yep.
It's the essence of what makes it great.
And I absolutely agree with you. And it's definitely one of those spirit of man over various, horrible things and whatever. It's nice. It's a good feeling. Good feeling to watch. Uh
It's a very optimistic show.
let's keep things moving so I don't have to rush too
Yes,
much.
that's
Yeah.
good point. Well, that's the only show I really like from the summer, and I just want to explain that because I think that's the best way to kind of sell people on it. Hopefully, because that's like if you thought that sounded cool, then you will really, really love this show because it's full of little moments like that.
So,
That's just one of the more dramatic ones.
yeah. I think we're in an agreement by the way for fall 2019. Uh the two best shows of this season
Yes.
are Beastars and No Guns Life. With My Hero Academia fourth season being like the shonen adaptation fourth season thing of the
Yeah, it's the continuing. It's the or I should say the sequel show.
yeah.
So I don't put it on the new shows of the year, but yes. My Hero Academia season 4 has been excellent so far, and I know for a fact that unless Bones does something bizarre to mess this up, and we have no reason to think they will, it's about to become absolutely incredible, and I really, really look forward to that.
Hmm.
But of the new shows, it's No Guns, Life, and Beastars.
Yep. I know a bit. I've been watching. Have you been keeping up with Beastar?
Unfortunately, not so much. I watched like the first a little bit over 4 episodes, and I really, really liked it. There's no reason I haven't watched it except that since I need to stream it illegally, basically, it's not as easy for me to access it.
So it's
That's the
actually,
only reason.
but it's
Yeah,
actually the highest rated season of this season, by 0.01% over My Hero Academia.
interesting.
So it's an
Really interesting,
8.26,
actually.
but My Hero Academia with 306. So like Beastar has 8.26 with less than 100,000 views on the My Anime list. Boku no Hero Academia has over 350,000, and it's an 8.25. So it's a testament to both of it. Beastars is pretty good. It's still going on, and it's about this school of humanized animals. There's no humans. You know, the humans are the animals. We are the animals now. Look at us do our human things, and they've still got their instincts, uh, from their lesser evolved forms, I guess. So you have to. Uh, it's how do I want to put it? Doctor Stone, the last three chapters, um, anyway, are. And so it's like these human dramas. There's murders, like the carnivores eat the stuff. It's Zootopia, except done really well, I guess. Um,
Yeah, that's everybody's consensus. This was my description of the plot. It's a dark tale about the lives of herbivores and carnivores living in a society where they are forced to integrate as equals. Specifically, it takes place in the school and follows the life of Lugosi, a polite and mild mannered wolf who is constantly swallowing down sudden urges of extreme bloodlust. After a
mhm.
murder takes place on campus and Lugosi nearly loses control and kills a rabbit, tensions mount and conflicts start to arise not only between the herbivores and the carnivores, but between fellow carnivores with conflicting ideas about how to live their lives.
Yep,
I think that's about as good a description as I could come up with. So I like that.
absolutely. It's yeah, it's very enjoyable. The character drama is 10 out of 10. Like it's not one of those shows that's afraid of its own premise. Like there's nothing worse than a show that's afraid to go the full bore of its own premise. Um, and it's I think it was
Fairy Gun.
yeah. Yeah. Cuz it means that, you did this. You put like millions of dollars into it, and then you didn't have the guts to make it a worthwhile investment. I mean, can you imagine like two gangsters, like the elf gang and the dwarf gang, and then like the dwarf gang all of a sudden just whips out this automaton out of his shadow, and then like the elf like summons the Earl King out of his own shadow and then they fight. Like sure, that's very similar to like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but you can really play on it. Or like somebody
Oh,
who's
it would be a blast.
right? Like we wouldn't even care what the plot is. It could be bog standard. But then, there's this epic fight because two gang bosses got too close to each other. That's actually why K which is a terrible show in a vacuum. That's why K was such a good premise, because it wasn't afraid to have these kings meet each other, have a clash of wills, and they're like, yeah, if one of them actually wins and they fight to the death, this city's going down, man. They got the equivalent of a nuclear bomb's worth of power in there over their heads. Like like you can feel like this how good the story will be just by how confident they are with it. But why don't you tell us about No Guns Life?
No Guns Life, yes. So, this is what I have on the fall summary. Thought it's actually technically still ongoing. Not every show is finished yet. Uh, it's been an insanely good season. New shows and sequels, like even better than the the winter season this year, which was an excellent season. This has been just such a good season. It had tons and tons of isekai, but not even all of them were awful. Descendants of a Bookworm is slow, but it's pretty good. The two comedies, Pro Wrestler Isekai, Cautious Hero Isekai, are fine. They were fine. And then you get the great sequels. Shihaya Furu, which is a show that I've discovered from John C. Wright's blog, actually. He talked about it once. It's about a girl who plays a Japanese card game called Karuta, and all of the relationships that form around that. It's fun. Kind of a light, fun show, but I liked it. Season 3 came out. It's pretty good. And, of course, Season 4 of My Hero Academia. And it's slowly ramping up, but it's already very good, and it's going to keep getting better. But, No Guns Life. No Guns Life was my favorite. I loved it. It's a great show. It kind of fell under the radar, which is weird. I'm not sure why. J.D. Cohen mentioned that on my article. By the way, J.D. Cohen is a very good writer. Check out his blog, Between the Wasteland and the Sky. He'll come and listen to these chats occasionally, and I know he talks about anime a lot too, so if you like this sort of thing, J.D. Cowan. Anyway, there's a quick plug for him, because I like J.D. No Guns Life kind of fell under the radar a bit. It is a show about a cyberpunk dystopian future where people have augmented their bodies with cybernetic extensions. And the main character, Juzo, is a resolver, which basically means he's like a private detective who specifically works on cases involving extended. And also, Juzo's head is a gun. It's just a gigantic gun for a head. Like, that's just it. It's a gun.
Yep.
It's amazing. And I actually loved it, and I think the most impressive part of it... Yeah, you're gonna kill me with terrible isekai. Ha, if it doesn't kill me first.
Right. It's it's like just start killing people or something. Get real into art.
I should say that Assassin's Pride, the show, got a so bad it's good video by Jeff of Mother's Basement, and it's terrible. Oh, Assassin's Pride is terrible. However, the production values are shockingly good. I know Digibro mentioned something like that. He mentioned that Arifureta, he did something on how Arifureta was incompetent on every level, and Assassin's Pride was almost bizarrely not. Like, they put way too much effort into this terrible show. Which is true. I actually really like how it looks, but it's a bad show. Don't watch it. But I like how it looks. Anyway, I also thought the scene where he turned into a vampire in the middle of the fight was sick. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I unironically thought that was actually kind of badass, but I do not recommend it. It's trashed here. Whatever. No Guns Life, though. No Guns Life is awesome, and I think the most impressive part is that when you're actually watching the show, you don't really think, wow, Juzo looks silly. You'd think Juzo looks badass, because that's true, he does. And he's honestly a pretty tragic character. I mean, and that's how they play it. They don't play it campy, they play it for the tragedy. You know, he's been forcibly transformed into a living weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And they really, really play into the neo-noir premise. They go full in on it. It has a really interesting conspiracy mystery involving an evil corporation that experiments on children. And it looks very, and it feels very 90s. Like those mature shows of the 90s, like Bebop, you know, with more serious art styles and more
Yep.
serious storytelling. It's definitely not a it's not a shonen.
Yeah.
It is definitely not a shonen. It doesn't feel like a shonen, but this is in this case a good thing because it feels very much like a throwback show. And it looks great, by the way. The animation is great, the visual style is great.
Mm-hmm. And mm, it's got that right beat to it. Like it's got a great action thing. Like it's just got it. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those
It's got a
shows.
style, man.
Yep.
This was my pick for anime of the season, but I made a point of saying that honestly it's almost a matter of taste because Beastars was pretty much just as good.
Mm-hmm.
But to my tastes, I really, really like the throwback vibe of No Guns Life.
Yeah. It's pretty good. Um, the only thing that kind of weirds me out about this season is that there's a second season of Fairy Gone, and I didn't realize it was popular enough to earn a second season. You know
That
what I mean?
doesn't sound. That sounds as if they had already done it. Because how could they have it had it that soon
I
otherwise? I
know.
think this was planned in advance.
And then it didn't pull off, but they're stuck doing it anyway.
That show was kind of a shame.
Yeah.
But yeah, this season I think is just marked by being very impressive. I will say in the comments section we got into a little bit of a discussion about with Albert is the commenter. So sorry, I don't know who specifically that is, if he's involved or if he's just a random commenter. So, but this is the commenter. Albert brought up a little bit about how I mentioned with a sentence of a bookworm. It's a very slow burn, but it's has good characters and nice animation and interesting ideas underlying the story. So I enjoyed it. But I'm getting tired of European style settings. And
Yeah.
Albert said, I'd like to see shows that give us genuine medieval to early modern era complexity instead of the lazy world building passed off as medieval flavor. He's absolutely right. And my response was the saga of Tanya the Evil was too good to us.
Yep. And oh, that was actually a pretty good show. Um,
You
I
know, in retrospect, the more I think about it, the more I like it. It's a really good show.
Yep. And it had that great soundtrack, like where she pops off, magic's going off, and it's there's going to be an aerial gunfight, and it's like da 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 da, and it gets so hype, and then all of a sudden, like they're fighting, and it's just great. That's the important thing.
Yes,
I don't.
it's
Let's
the battle scenes are fantastic. The premise is hilarious,
right,
while also being genius. It's both. It's
right.
both hilarious and it's genius.
Another guy's gonna die. Is that you, God? I don't believe in you. Uh, okay.
And God's just like, really?
Really?
Well,
Let's
all
look at
right.
that.
If you think you're so great, try and survive this.
Right.
And makes her a little girl in a world where they're constantly at war, and then is constantly just messing with the world to screw her over as specifically as possible.
Yep.
Uh, Pretty great. It's a pretty brilliant premise, honestly. I really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Tanya has an amazing character design. The
Oh
show's
yeah.
character designs overall, I think, range from mediocre to just unmemorable, except for Tanya.
Hmm.
Tanya looks terrifying,
Oh yeah, and honestly,
which is a
that's
big. She has to. It's a big
yeah.
compliment.
It was probably the one thing they couldn't mess up. Like in actuality, like most of these people are generic. You're not there for them. All right, you're there for Tanya. Like One Punch Man has the main guy. He has a generic thing, but it's not as much about him as everyone else. Tanya is the opposite. Pretty much exactly the opposite. There's honestly, think about fall 2019. Besides those two shows, like there's nothing I really Beastars and No Guns Life. There's nothing really I wanted to see. Hatage Kimono Michi, which is about that wrestler guy who suplexes werewolves,
Yeah, pro
is
wrestler is a guy.
yeah. It's
That's
pretty
just what I call
funny.
it.
It's pretty funny. Like in the first episode ain't bad, but I just don't care.
Well,
Um,
here's what I put. They Cautious Hero is a Kai. Again, I'm not calling it by its full name. It's like the hero is overpowered but overly cautious, I think, or is
mhm.
either the full name or very close to it. And that premise is exactly what you're going to get, so I'm not even going to bother explaining it. That's the joke. The hero is overpowered but overly cautious. That is the joke of
Yep.
the show. And however, the animation of Cautious Hero Isekai is hilarious. The way that they, twist and turn the bodies and make their facial expressions.
Mhm.
And Pro Wrestler Isekai, I think, has a premise with more going on, but the animation's bland. And I
Yeah.
think if you combine the animation of Cautious Hero Isekai with the writing of Pro Wrestler Isekai, you'd get a pretty good show.
Mhm. I would agree with you.
Because Pro Wrestler Isekai is by the Konosuba guy.
Yep.
And can you imagine the Kona if it had the animation of Konosuba, which is hysterical?
Right. Yeah, and it's just one of those things where like I watched the first episode. One of the things that makes me sad is that like the hype for Psychopaths. Like there was a third season of Psychopaths. Like the second season was so bad, it just kind of killed any interest in uh more Psychopaths, which is just such a pity.
Yeah, Psychopaths. I started watching season one. I found the first episode. I think I got to the second episode. And this is another one of those shows where I stopped watching for reasons that had really nothing to do with the show. Just something must have
Hmm.
distracted me and I forgot about it.
It was pretty good.
But I would like to continue it. I appreciated what I saw. It was it was pretty gruesome with the it starts off with a fairly graphic rape scene. Uh roughly I would say we'll call it the Goblin Slayer level of graphic. Maybe about I would say yeah, about that level. Uh it's about Goblin Slayer levels of graphic. So that's not always something I love, even though if it's a good enough show, I can definitely get behind it anyway. And
Hmm.
it was fine. I had no, just for whatever reason, I got distracted and forgot about it. But I would go back to it. I probably will one day.
Hmm. And I recommend it. The first season, though, some of them are pretty cut and dry and not worth it. Like there's this one factory scene that's only really good for the fight at the end. But then like some scenes, especially the halftime climax, oh, oh, 10 out of 10. Let's blast from the past watch Kino no Tabi. If I remember. Uh Actually I've never heard of that. So let's talk about the future.
Oh, wait. There's one more category.
What's that?
Yeah, really quickly, just for fun.
Okay.
Disappointment of the year.
Oh yeah.
This was my last Fire Force. I was pretty hyped for because it sounded cool. Watch Promare instead. Uh, it's literally the same premise, but way cooler. One Punch Man second season. It's almost hard to call a disappointment because nobody thought it was going to be that good, and shockingly, it was not that good.
Mhm.
Uh, The Rising of the Shield Hero, I already made clear I did not like it. Was not a
Yeah.
fan. However, Carol and Tuesday, Shinichiro Watanabe show, anything by him deserves to be paid attention to. For those who don't recognize the name, Cowboy Bebop.
Yep. Yep.
That's about what you need to know.
But the thing is that
And
like,
it's
hmm,
go ahead.
yeah. Well, like a show like that is not something I really care for, but that's okay.
It's still, yeah, it's Cowboy Bebop though. I think it's like something I gotta pay
No, no, no,
attention when
no.
he does
Cowboy Bebop
something.
is pretty good. I was talking about Carol and Tuesday. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get what you mean. It's the quick plot of the show is a rich girl in a sci-fi future moves to the city to make it big in music. She teams up with a poor waitress and they form a band. And if that sounds like it could be a friggin' rom-com or something, you're right. And it's boring. I can't even really call it terrible. It was just really generic. The world building was sci-fi future. It looked like every other sci-fi future. The animation was just kind of there. It was fine. The
Mm-hmm.
characters were exactly what you would expect them to be. Their personalities didn't have any twist on them at all. I especially did not like Rich Girl at all. I just don't like that type of character. You know,
Right.
Cyndi Lauper was her inspiration. It's ridiculously shallow. Maybe you're supposed to think she's shallow, but if that's the case, it just does not appeal to me at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it was predictable and trite, and that's I gotta say, I did not expect that from a Shinichiro Watanabe show, so I was disappointed. Soundtrack's good though.
Eh,
Listen to the soundtrack.
yeah. Oh
It
yeah.
is fun.
Like if they had messed that up, it would have been just sad.
A total disaster.
Oh
But
yeah.
no, the music is good. And that's at least Watanabe-ish, because Watanabe always has great music in his shows.
Yep. He understands. So let's talk about the next season real quick and the next year in general. Uh, Winter 2020, the biggest show probably everyone's looking forward to, or at least they should be, is Doro Hetero. It's a dark, sort of cyberpunky, sort of Tsutomu Nihei, and it was made by somebody called Q Hayashida, who was a student of Nihei's. It's full of the blackest humor you can imagine. Just dark humor after dark humor, and it's absolutely fantastic. Full of violence, action, humor. It's got it all. There's also uh, Kyoko Siri, which is like Sherlock Holmes with fairies and stuff like that. And what was the other one? Darwin's Game, if you like students killing each other, I guess. But
Oh, it's
there's
another Battle Royale slash Hunger Games thing.
sort of, except it's like everyone has to do things. And Qt Dragons, though I don't really know much about it. It's by Polygon Pictures. So it could be either really good or it could be just kind of so-so. One of those two.
I'm going into my history because I had a list of, my browser history because I had a list pulled up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and there was one, honestly, of all the shows, there was only one that I think stuck out to me, though. Dodorohedro was one everybody has been talking about, so
Yeah, and
that
and yeah,
so I am looking forward to seeing that. This new anime, let's see.
I'm also looking
Nope.
through. There's like sort of the year in general. There's BNA Gleipnir, which is about I assume furries, except with Studio Trigger. Gleipnir, which is about a kid who
Oh
transforms
man,
into a
that's got to be
mascot.
awesome.
Right? It's gonna be ridiculous.
Studio Trigger doing furries got to be like so over the top. I would love it.
Right? Please. Uh, let's see here. I'm just looking through the
Oh,
things.
I found the show I was looking at that looked really interesting to me. It
Mm-hmm.
was called Somali and the Forest God. And first off, the one still that they show of it, it looks absolutely gorgeous. So hopefully the animation and or at least the artistic quality is up to par with the still. But
Nice.
it's
Mm-hmm.
A mystery girl named Somali in a future where humans have been hunted by monsters almost to the edge of extinction comes into contact with Golem, a forest spirit. And the story focuses on the bond between Somali and Golem, as Golem takes on the role of a father, watching over this child in a world where she would be in danger if anyone knew who she was.
Mm.
And the early clips look good, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that. It makes me think of Ancient Magus Bride, actually.
Yeah, I got those vibes too. But Ancient Magus Bride was beautiful. Uh, I'm sort of looking through the people who did it. The studio, Log Horizon. Uh,
Oh, these are the Log Horizon people,
so
huh?
it's going to be pretty good actually. I'm pretty hyped now.
Real, yeah, that makes me excited.
Yep.
Because for those who don't know, my hatred of isekai, which is not real, I'm exaggerating because I actually there are several that I like, but my as a rule hatred for isekai, Log Horizon is one of the bigger exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Log Horizon is excellent,
That's
and
proof I
it's
have actual
excellent because
characters.
it's honest.
Right. Absolutely. You absolutely got it.
It's smart. It's a very smart show. The first season, it's a little bit Dr. Stone-ish actually in the way that he tries to figure out how the world works and how to manipulate it. But
Mm-hmm.
I also really, really like that they acknowledge the fact that these people, if they're this obsessed with an MMO, and if they, take to being there so easily, something about them must be seriously messed up. And I
Absolutely.
really, really love that they acknowledge that.
And you're at, and they actually overcome a lot of stuff to go through this. You know, all the plot that they've got. Um, that was winter and spring.
Yeah.
Just sort of
Sorry, quick.
together.
That
No, it's
that
fine.
that was the quick
It's
look at Lock Horizon. Anyway,
Yep. And it's worth talking about some other time. Lastly, before the end of the year of 2020, we have a few different shows. We don't know when, but the big ones for me are going to be Decadence, which looks absolutely amazing, even if you have
yes,
no idea about it. Studio Nut. Um, I think it's got dragons and stuff
there
like
have been
that.
so many jokes about that studio, and they're all fantastic.
Right.
My
Fortunately,
favorite,
yeah.
my favorite comment was, "I assume they're closed in November for obvious reasons."
Did they even have a show this season? They didn't. They didn't actually. So yeah, you're right. Uh,
That's
anyway,
fun.
so they did Tanya the Evil, and they're gonna do Decadence, and it's gonna look pretty amazing. There's also something called Sakugan Labyrinth Marker, which I'm pretty interested in. Some girls basically the key to this labyrinth they're working through, and uh,
That
there's
sounds cool.
there's a couple of different
Are there any
things.
good shonen?
Second season of
Because this
Promise
was a great
Neverland.
year in shonen.
So, second season of Promise Neverland, and the last season of Attack on Titan, shonen wise. There's also a few sports shows going around, and Megalobox 2. Even though like the show, it's all right. It's not quite my thing. Um, it was everyone loved it, and the soundtrack was a solid 10 out of 10. Like I still use the fight starting to do it. A second season of Doctor Stone, which will probably come out in the fall, considering how popular this one has been. Uh,
Which show?
Doctor Stone.
Yes, yeah. I know they. It was pretty exciting because they announced it at the in the last episode of season one that there would be a season two. I was very happy about that,
So
so
there's
I'm looking forward to that.
there's one last show that's going to be the dark horse. It's called Apare Ranman. During the back
What's
end
it
of
called?
Apare Ranman, I'll send you a link. I'll put a link in
Yeah,
chat for
do that.
everyone. During the back end of the 19th century, the genius but socially awkward engineer Serrano Apare and the wise yet cowardly samurai Ishiki Kosame find themselves drifting in the sea between America and Japan. With no money, the duo decide to enter the Trans America wild race to win prize money so they can get home. The two encounter rivals, bandits, and challenges in the wilderness as they race through America, from the starting line in Los Angeles to the finish line in New York in the steam power car they built.
Reminds me of Steel Ball Run.
Exactly, and they're probably trying
Actually, that
to,
sounds dead on, like, exactly like Steel Ball Run.
right? And it's like all of a sudden, like, they, Jesus Christ starts popping up.
Yeah,
Uh,
really.
yeah, and it's like all these larger than life characters. It's like they're doing wacky races, except like Japan style. Uh,
It does look really cool, and I look forward to it.
yep.
I was not a fan of Megalobox. I can't really say I had a problem with it though. I just tried it out and it wasn't my thing. There was nothing wrong with it. I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, yeah, I could tell I'm not gonna really have fun with this, so I just stopped.
Yeah.
But there's no problem with the show. It was very, very well made. I can give it the production values, a
Oh yeah.
seal of approval.
A lot of people enjoyed it. Like it's a pretty good show. But anyway, I've gotta go do things. That was kind of the year in review. It's been a great year overall. Never really got to books and movies, but you could come on some other time and we'll talk about books and movies and
Sure,
such.
honestly, like I said, anime's kind of been my pulp revolution. In the sense that it opened me up to new ideas of storytelling. So that's really what I've been focusing on more than anything else. But I'm happy. And also, movies this year sucked. They sucked.
They did.
They were bad.
They
Uh,
yeah.
Anime films were good. Konosuba movie was hysterical, and I almost died laughing in the theater.
Mm,
My Hero movie was good, but movies as a whole, they were garbage.
absolutely. And overall, it's been a pretty good year for me as well. So it's like, 2019, pretty good year. I'm gonna look back favorably on it. Anyway,
I agree.
thank you, Anthony. I've got one more show. I might have Brian Niemeyer on if his book's going to be released, or I might, just grab somebody else to talk about what they're producing, and we'll find out sometime in the future. All right, have a good one.
I'll take a look at your next show. Now I need to watch the Critical Drinkers Part 2 of the Rise of Skywalker review.
Merry Christmas and
It
Happy New Year.
just dropped. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Absolutely.